I am CouchCoop and we're looking at backwards compatible PlayStation 4 games that work on the PlayStation 5. Quite a particular area of this, the game cannot sit on the SSD drive and it can't have that white PlayStation 5 symbol. There's so many enhanced PlayStation 5 games out there, or true PlayStation 5 games now, but there are a few that require nothing on update. They'll just be sitting on your shelf, you put them in your machine and you see some unbelievably good results. We're going to start with the Nioh Collection, which comes with two awesome modes. It calls them movie and action. Action is obviously the performance mode that allows you to operate the game at up to 120 frames per second, but you've also got a 4K 30 frames per second mode. This is really cool on a third-person ARPG. Heavy on action and atmosphere. This is a Souls-like clone, but really carved a name for itself on the market for just being a die-hard, amazing Ninja Gaiden meets Dark Souls AAA title that's unbelievably hard. It will last you years. Both of those games, you got half a decade there. I'll be testing all of these games on their 4K fidelity or quality modes if they have them. This one, I don't like the 30 frames per second. I much prefer the action mode. It's not the youngest of games and it does get extremely busy. So it's cool to have those nice high smooth frame rates. Timing is everything. You've got to use your key button and also block. What sells me this game is what you're seeing now. A very in-depth, amazing feudal Japan loot system that's got some awesome shinobi style samurai armor. It will just keep you going, making yourself look so much cooler, and working out how all of those 7 different weapon brackets work with some absolutely outlandish looks and weapons. This is truly a massive letter of love to all of that beautiful armor, weapon styles, stances, even yokai style enemies, and looking at the element system and the amount of work that the enemies will do on themselves, give themselves health, give themselves buffs. This one takes a bit of muscle memory. I wouldn't recommend jumping between games and then hopping onto this. You'll get taught a very serious lesson. It's now time for Zombie Army 4, which gives you a compulsory 4K resolution, true 4K Returnal, and 60 frames per second peg. This is amazing. I loved this game so much on the PlayStation 4 Pro, and seeing it on my 5 is just a complete joy. And yes, they've given us Left 4 Dead characters. Very much an over-the-shoulder boulder holder, but this game could offer the richest campaign, co-op online campaign of all of the games I talk about on this list, bar very few. If you're into zombie horde modes and a really cool alternative post-war Nazi apocalyptic timeline. Again, we're in the realms of those frames per second, really helping the combat and really helping you work out at what speed everything's going to happen to you. There's no skipping frames. When it comes to its 4K fidelity, you're not going to fall off your chair with some of the game's textures or layout. Again, this is not the youngest of games on the list, but it certainly holds its own. Not in the photo mode though. This is me trying to get a workable bit of photo mode out of it. It's really tough. It doesn't like you moving the sticks. There's no smooth dolly pans, but it's a photo mode, Coop. What do you expect? It's not made for you to scrutinize all of the textures. The game does allow you to shoot a zombie in the Cleggers halfway through climbing up a pylon though. That's got to be worth the price of entry. It could be one of my all-time favourite zombie games, and the fact that it's not got any local co-op on it does break the heart. You've got COD Zombie Cold War, which is overtaking this because you can just enjoy it with someone else next to you. But the online capabilities and the sheer audacity of some of the situations the game puts you in is so memorable, and seeing it all again on your PlayStation 5 at this smooth as butter ratios, absolutely priceless. And talking of priceless, I'm pretty sure this game was free on the PlayStation Network for a long time. It's certainly over on Game Pass for next to nothing, so get involved. Zombie Army 4. Alright, it's Kratos' turn. This is the first game that bled out on the whites, which is unusual because loads of these HDR implementations are present with the capture, but this one, for some reason, loads of oversaturation on some of the lighter parts of the screen, but no issues. It's still absolutely head and shoulders above any third-person ARPG with looks on the PlayStation 4, and it still holds this massive place in my heart. I'll never forget its launch. I'll never forget getting the limited edition, putting it in my machine, my base level PlayStation 4, like all those years ago, and just being so knocked back at how incredible the graphics were, and I was truly feeling like I was in the next gen of gaming.
But of course there's more to that story.
On a cheeky note, it is dynamic 4K and not 4K. What that means is it will super sample on a tiling basis, so it will pick certain areas of the screen, normally the most central and the parts that you would be technically looking at, and it will increase the density of the resolution in that section, thus not using all the CPU or GPU up and allowing the machine to mimic an almost 4K image. Why that's in there for the PlayStation 5, I'm not sure. There must be bigger things at play that mean that this can't be rolled out on a true 4K basis. Maybe they're saving it to be pushed out when they bring Ragnarok as a special edition. Because remember, all these games are not official SSD PlayStation 5 upgrades. I know it's not white knuckle eye candy footage, but the depth of detail still in a game of this age and seeing it all again. But let's talk about its major plus, and that's its PEG 60 frames per second, because as with all third person ARPGs or action games in general, this is a freaking godsend.
Keep it up.
Now you can see that white saturation situation, let's call it, but it doesn't take away from how fluid the game runs. This over the shoulder position with Kratos being quite close to camera was kind of a new thing, especially the God of War series. I was thinking the other day, a lot of us have probably forgotten how damn linear the previous games were. There was none of this open world, go back, upgrade, tackle something later. I love that idea with it. With God of War Ragnarok closely round the bend, a lot of you may have heard this analogy before, but imagine if this game we're looking at was released on the PlayStation 3 on its day of launch as well as the PlayStation 4. We wouldn't be talking about it like this now. It was a solid generation jump. It was huge and it worked on launch, and all the stuff in the trailer was the stuff in the game. Can you believe that? Can you believe that was a thing? Worked on launch, everything in the trailer was in the main game. Not a single microtransaction in any of it. That used to be a real thing.
Right, that's just perfect.
Okay, it's time for Obsidian and their game Outer Worlds. Not to be confused with the Outer Limits or the Outer Wilds. You may have seen the recent Fallout 4 video. This is kind of an honorary mention. It is also looking at some amazing plus performance. You're probably aware that I'm having a bit of a VAT renaissance, and I have been playing Fallout 76 for a number of years and just clean forgot. They kind of brainwashed me how good the Fallout Las Vegas, Fallout 4, even Fallout 3 and this are, because of their combat just being so well tuned, especially the slowdown replacement on the VATS. With this game, it's reinvigorated me to go back and look at the main story again, and potentially some of that DLC. There are 2 packs available for it. Only giving us 60 frames per second as opposed to an increase on the resolution also is a little bit annoying.
I've had quite enough of you!
This is one of the games I was very into on my PlayStation 4 Pro, and I got through a lot of content before getting the 5, and it really rocked my world to see the improvements on the frame rates when loading it up onto the PlayStation 5, because a lot of the outside areas, busy towns, NPC rich populated sections of the map would just stutter like a mug. I've been doing a lot of Elden Ring patch reviews lately, and it is so worth having a pegged frame rate when you're traversing a large map, looking into the distance. Even things like pop-in and granular detail on that low resolution pull you out of the immersion quite a lot with this game. But it's such a good campaign, and it's really amazing single player content, and it's totally worth putting back in your machine if it's been sat on your shelf because you finished it a couple of years ago. No, go and have a look at it on your PlayStation 5. I assure you, you'll thank me. Do I think this game is better than Fallout New Vegas? Because they're both from Obsidian. It's a really close call because New Vegas is out on Game Pass and I got to play it on my PC. So I'm looking at 60 frames per second on a game that I was used to 25 frames per second and a 720 resolution. So it really made me have a fresh pair of eyes on it. But after revisiting this, especially with the boosts and this cool slow-mo VAT system and a richer world with slightly more freedom to sort of go to different planets, the biomes aren't as varied as I'd like, but I feel the story in New Vegas is kind of a bit more iconic. It's probably the internet's fault. You never know, the story on Outer Worlds might be just as famous in the next 10 years.
Ellie, found the door. Help me out?
Not too much harping on about The Last of Us Part 2, just featured in my top single player PlayStation 5 game list because it comes with a really awesome patch, 1.7 I think it was, which allows native 4K at 30 frames per second or a really cool dynamic 4K at 60 frames per second. Referring back to the God of War situation, this dynamic 4K is actually very good, and having it at 60 frames per second is a real bonus because I think this is probably the best you're going to see this game looking.
I'll make you a present. I'll take a present.
Let's go back to that resolution performance argument, and this game is spectacular with its visuals. I wouldn't bill it too much as a third-person ARPG, although it is combat heavy in sections. But seeing those vistas, riding your horse through those woods, seeing the amazing graphics that Naughty Dog have put on here in true 4K is exactly what I want when I put that disc into my expensive $500 bloody massive white box.
Here. Thanks.
We have also just had the remaster of the remake released on the PlayStation 5, which does truly sit on the old SSD. And if you're not up to speed, that's a double remake. So we had The Last of Us 1 on the PlayStation 3, then we had The Last of Us Remastered on the PlayStation 4, and now we have The Last of Us Remastered Remake on the PlayStation 5 at top dollar as well. I would just stick with this for the time being because you're also dealing with some incredible AI programming and set pieces. You've probably, like myself, finished that first one on more than enough systems, more than enough times. Fans of this game who have never seen the PlayStation 5 version will straight up realise that coming in on that rope to that map and how smooth that transition was is a massive flex for how awesome the PlayStation 5 version of this game is. Now I have to be careful there, this is not on my SSD, we didn't see an official upgrade, but we did see a patch that allowed the PlayStation 5's power to be utilised to its maximum with Monster Hunter World. All of these maps are stunning, this one in particular, its vibrant pinks and colours and moving material in the air itself. The whole feel of the game is just so detailed and luxurious on a really granular level that you feel like you're being looked after, like you're playing a quadruple A game. It was absolutely gobsmacking when I saw this first of all on the 9th generation system. To have it on my 10th is just amazing. I don't have to buy a new copy, don't have to spend any money, and I still get to enjoy excellent visuals. Go to Tsushima, control, no one's looking at you. I sunk 1,000 hours into this game. I would have actually started a Monster Hunter World only channel if I had the time and resources, but also notice that I'm talking about the game in past tense because Monster Hunter Rise came out on the Nintendo Switch, probably a little over a year ago, and it implements a move that allows you to almost air dash, and it changes everything. If you've never touched the Monster Hunter series, don't go near Rise until the 11th hour. Play all of it first, because I go for the button all the time with muscle memory now. I'm like, I need to get my wire bug going. I was also talking about Overwatch 2 recently and the similarities with learning a character and learning a weapon with this game. You main this particular weapon, you could spend up to 150 hours with said weapon and still learn new nuances about how it behaves. You can also completely solo this game, and I love the idea of doing that. I traditionally have always played Monster Hunters first on solo, and then you go and look at all of the ranked multiplayer content. Let's talk about its two modes, because again we have fidelity and performance. Its 4K edition with the 60 frames variable is alright, but it's an action game, so it's just great to have that slightly less resolution but an amazing PEG 60. Wow, this rocked my world when I first saw it, so it's top marks. Some official PlayStation 5 SSD upgrades don't have this much impact on the base game. Absolutely amazing stuff. Monster Hunter World. Remnant from the Ashes. Spent the whole of 2020 being my favourite game, and it gives us 4K at 30 frames per second, and we've got a 1080 at 60 frames. All this footage is 60 frames. I'm uploading at 60 frames, so I'm not going to deviate. Holy crap, this is a game I put a lot of hours into on the PlayStation 4 Pro. When I put the disc into the PlayStation 5, my eyeballs nearly fell out of my head. If you don't know, this is a heavy action third-person ARPG in the vein of Dark Souls with guns, and you really need those invincibility frames. This is a game that runs very fast and hectic, so having those 60 frames to fall back on is excellent. This is another very strong cooperative campaign. You can solo this game. I wouldn't recommend it. It nearly sent me insane, but it's got a reroll system on all levels. It's so clever.
I'm in trouble.
Could be one of the toughest games I own. It's up there with Nioh and the next game coming up, but it's so rewarding to keep hold of this and then put it onto the 5 and see that added power come into play with it. It's a game that didn't misbehave on the base level machines, and we saw some enhancements on the Pro, but having that sheen of 60 frames per second all over it, doesn't dip, and this game's busy. Some effects on those guns are absolutely epic, so very happy with this version. We are doing honorary mentions, and The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt does feature. It comes with some cool PlayStation 5 boosts. No official update or upgrade, but we saw a patch come in allowing those frame rates to be smooth. The legendary Helldivers also comes with some amazing PlayStation 5 upgrades, which is just so damn cool. This and Second Son also pretty amazing to have games that old still become relevant because they've got this added boost of power. So some pretty strange stuff has happened to me in Sekiro since the launch of Elden Ring. When I first got into Sekiro, that traversal mechanic felt really forced for me. As a Dark Souls traditionalist, leaving the ground wasn't something I was used to. Now it's blindingly obvious that this was the connecting tissue between the Elden Ring and some of the Dark Souls games. It's so great and free feeling having this traversal mechanic. If you've only played Elden from, I recommend going back and looking at this. The campaign's brilliant, the story's amazing, the combat is white knuckle and very different from everything they've done. That was a learning curve for a lot of people, but in hindsight, the game is really stripped down with everything, infantry, cosmetics, and almost the combat structure. That has brought a very fast-paced, free-flowing combat system and game structure. You just smash through it all, you're not having to make decisions on numbers with infantry, you're just straight in, delivering punishment where you should be. Having the choice between 60 frames per second and 4K is win-win with this game. Not only does it have some incredible views and artwork and vistas, but it's also some of the fastest combat on this entire list. So you can go to either to utilize each of those particulars. I keep it firmly on the 60 frames per second. It's only 1080, but we did see some dips on those base level machines, and again this was a favorite on the older PlayStation 4. And like Remnant from the Ashes, it pretty much feels like a completely new and fresh experience. I can't stress that enough. You read any articles about the Sekiro 10th generation version and they'll all say this is so worth going back to with this improved performance. I once, many moons ago, pitched this game against Nioh 1 and got a hell of a lot of views from the video. It was incredible to see the response and the defense for Sekiro. Over the years, I have since done a U-turn on my stance with the game. I really appreciate what From were doing with going in that different direction. I like the game's stealth mechanics, and its white knuckle deflect game model is something brand new for the series. Feels fresh, looks stunning still. Hence the reason it's right at the top of this list with these new modes. If they came out with a true PlayStation 5 version of this that was flat 4K and 60 frames per second locked all in, I may be tempted to look at it. But the fact that we've got this absolutely amazing performance at no extra cost whatsoever is really why I've put all these games together. That goes for every single one of them on the list. It's barely an update. Sometimes they may even just copy off the disc and you're good to go. Slightly extended footage here. Love the standoff on the bridge. Such a cool fight. There are other backwards compatible games that unfortunately didn't make it onto the list, Gran Turismo 7 being one of them, but everything on here is here because it made a huge impact on me after seeing it extensively on the base level PlayStation 4 and Pro. So I have been Couch Coop. I hope you guys enjoyed all of that. Happy Halloween, by the way. I've got a massive film video coming up. I'm going to go full space horror. Keep your eyes to the skies, and of course, I'll see you down there.